Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I want to, as an intuitive and someone who listens, I want to go over some of the discomfort and challenges that I've been feeling for the past 2 weeks as it relates to the transit and the coping mechanism that we need to apply to in order for us to be able to have safe passage. And a lot of it involves things that we already know, but that I personally need to be reminded of. Okay. It's kind of like a general malaise, like when you're being challenged by all kinds of things that are really big. And I want to go back over the story of Job. Okay. All of us are facing things that are immense in our own separate ways that seem insurmountable. Okay. It could be a health challenge. It could be a financial challenge. It could be an emotional challenge. It could be a combination of all of the above. And the story in Job is that, and as I spoke last week about the hierarchy of beings and the angels and the various levels of heaven, as it was described in the second book of Enoch. We've learned, and the funny thing is that this book was included originally in the original version of the Bible. It was not until 325 AD that the church fathers, the Christian church fathers, took this book and many other books and other gospels that were concurrent with the full gospel that were left, took all of them out and proceeded to try to destroy any record of any of these other books for their own monopolizing personal reasons. Now, it so happened that the Book of Enoch survived in the Christian Coptic Church because they were not connected with the Church of Constantinople. And so through them and through some of the hidden sources, the Book of Enoch was later on found. And I want to go over some of the things that he said that corroborate the story of Enoch. The story of Job. So in the Book of Enoch, it talks about the fact that two angels came and took Enoch into the heavens. And they told him to remember everything and write everything down. And then he was to come down again and talk to his son and tell his son everything that he saw. He went to the first heaven and noticed this beautiful place and so on and so forth. And he described it in copious details. Then he went to the second heaven. The angel took him even higher to the second heaven. And there, what he noticed were all the fallen beings. And I want to emphasize this and make you understand, because there are nuances here that are extremely important. And these things are going to blow. If you go up Christian, this is going to blow explode your paradigm out. And it is that every being that was created were created with free will, including the angels, the angelic race. Anytime a being decides, and if you remain in God's grace, meaning if you want to remain in God's grace and continue to hold that grace, you have to obey. You have to allow his will to be done. Like our Father says, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You have to allow his will to be done. Right? And the reason the angels, some of the angels, Lucifer, that led all of them, that was the first fall, became fell so-called out of grace. It was because Lucifer decided that he wanted to do his own will. And it's not necessarily malice. I want to emphasize this. It's not necessarily evil and corruption per se. It's the fact that they decided, I'm going to do it differently. I'm not going to blindly obey. I'm going to think for myself. And as that happens, then suddenly you lose your grace. And where do you fall? You fall in the second heaven. And I'm going to go even further. When he traveled now to the fourth heaven, to the third heaven rather, he noticed first the tree of life. We know about the tree of life. I did that on the dream class for two different series. But he said in there that at first he saw the tree of life, and it was a tree with all of these beautiful fruits and leaves and so on and so forth, and it smelled, the aroma, it was intoxicating and all of these wonderful things. And then to the north of that, he saw another area where there were tons and horrible suffering. And that was hell. So hell was in the third heaven. It reminds me in the Kabbalah of the the idea that there is the tree of life, and underneath Malkuth is what the Kabbalists call the Klipat, which is the inverted tree, which is where all kinds of toxic and so what we would call demonic things would occur. Be that as it may, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I want you to go back to the story of Job. In Job 1, chapter 1, the description, I don't have the verse, the text in front of me, but what happened is that Job, when an angel took Satan into the heaven. In other words, from the second heaven, Satan traveled all the way up to the first heaven, to the throne room of God, and had a conversation with God and asked God, asked Satan, what are you doing? Like they know each other, they're friends. What are you doing? Oh, here and there, and so on and so forth. I'm on earth, I'm doing all kinds of other things, and so on and so forth. And then God said to him, have you met my servant Job, who is so holy and so pure and so righteous and so on and so forth? And Satan said, was he tested? Or something to that effect. In other words, how do you know that he really is your servant when you bless him with all kinds of gifts and favors? What if he doesn't have the gift and the favors in your grace? Would he still be your servant? Would he still obey to you? Would he still blindly follow and believe in you? Would he still be in faith? And God said, okay, you can test him, but do not take his life. And Satan went down to earth, and all kinds of things began to happen to Job. Disease, he lost all three of his children, he lost his wife, he lost his house, he lost everything, and he was literally a beggar on the street. Yet throughout all of this, not once did he lose faith, and he was still believing that he was connected to God. And I want you to be honest. You don't have to tell me, but I want you to be honest with yourself. The challenges that you're going through right now, whatever they may be, and however big that they are, because all of us the whole planet is having a Job moment. That's what I'm trying to say. Everyone on the planet is having their Job moment right now. And this is a chapter, a part of the Bible we should be rereading at this moment. And we're all being faced with all kinds of challenges, as I said, whether they are emotional, whether they are mental. I'm still speaking with so many people who are financially distressed, who are health-wise distressed, who are still suicidal, who have all kinds of challenges. Do you want to throw the towel out and want to get out of this life? And if that is the case, you've lost your faith. But if you can still maintain your faith and your connection to the divine, even in the worst of circumstances, at some point, the test will stop and God will elevate you. And that's the point of the challenge. Okay? It's how far down these tests are you going to go through before you finally say to yourself, I'm not going to let the challenge overcome me, but I'm still going to maintain my faith. I told you and I've shared with you, I have so far experienced in the past 5 years things that I would never in a billion years thought I would have had experience. challenges that fundamentally in any other circumstances, anybody else would have lost their faith. And I have not lost my faith. I have continued to pray. I am continuing to hold on to God, and I continue on. But it's not that the connection to God is easy when you're being overwhelmed by things that are very loud and that are telling you you're going to lose everything. Okay? Either because of a financial stress or distress for that matter, or somebody giving you a health diagnosis or pain in your body, whatever the case may be. You get so overwhelmed by what's going on that at the moment, there could be distress. There could be these. This is Satan, Hasatan, testing you to see if you're gonna remain with literally with metal to the pedal, to test you to see if you're gonna remain connected to the divine, if you're still gonna elevate and say, I still believe in God, no matter what's going on with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not fear. Though I walk through the shadows, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Can you really say this and mean it? Not just repeat something like blah, 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 and then inside it's not that I'm not vulnerable. It's not that I'm not in panic. I am still vulnerable. I'm still in panic. I'm still struggling. I'm still trying to figure out, but I have unbelievable hope. And how am I managing to get into that hope? How am I managing to still remain aligned? There is a part of me that fundamentally believe that the universe is benevolent, that believe completely true, that kindness, love, gratitude, and mercy exist everywhere, and that I am connected to that. Although at the moment I may not see it in my life, I may not see the mercy of God and the gifts of God coming to me, but I know they are coming. And so it's a real challenge for for all of us to kind of like navigate this existential crisis. And moreover, the challenges and the pain and the suffering that all of us, whether you see that a disease, financial, however you see you experience this, or a mental illness, it is all made up of illusion because of our attachments to certain things. I know it's hard to understand this, particularly if you have bills that are going to be paid and people are running after you for money, or if you are in a situation where you have a health diagnosis and you don't understand why you're suffering and what's going on. I can tell you and I can promise you, it's all part, and because of your karma, this is the test that was customized and designed for you to test your faith, to help you pass your Job test. All of us have to pass our Job test to move through this. It's not just me. We all have to go through it. Doesn't mean you have to lose everything. It means that at some point you have to transcend. And if you can get to a point, even at what appears to be your bottom, you can still get up and say, I am not alone and God is with me. I fear no evil. God is with me. I am supported. God is with me. And his grace, his blessing, and his mercy will pour down upon me, upon my soul from this moment forward. For I am anointed by the divine. And if your faith can take you into that space, the test will begin to recede. It will begin to recede. It won't go all at once. I want you to understand it. It will slowly begin to draw back. You will recede. And you will begin to find a path to navigate, to move through. Because the whole planet has to go to the Job test between now and the crossing of the galactic equator. So what I'm saying is that we should figure out a way to support this process. And I want to talk a little bit about how I'm managing to support this process in me. What kind of things I'm doing personally in my life, what kind of okay, here's the thing. Some of us have challenges also that relates to the kind of diet we're feeding our spirituality and our mind. And this is important because if you are on mass media particularly, and you're looking at conspiracy theory stuff, and particularly you watch one thing or two things, the algorithm will begin to bombard, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's WhatsApp, the algorithm will begin to bombard you with the same thing, and it will come to you. And that kind of diet of fear and more fear and more fear and more fear and more fear will cut off your light. Your illumination will end, and you will get deeper. It's like a dark vortex, dark spiral. So we have to be aware of what we're reading, consuming, seeing, and basically exposing our mind and our consciousness to. You need to elevate all of that and make sure that what you're consuming is about your connection to the divine, because we are really going to dark and scary time. If at any other moment you didn't do it, this is the time for you to do it. Stay away from the fear. And every time somebody is talking about fear, whatever, I walk away. I don't need to hear this, because the more I hear about other people's burden, the more I become now responsible to fix and to repair. Because in my mind, my consciousness is going to go, so this person has this problem. How do I fix this? The less I know, the better I am. Because I have my own issue that I'm trying to navigate through. Like Dr. Stone, my teacher, used to say, you have to become spiritually selfish and start your own personal rescue. So make sure that the kind of diet, what you're watching, what you're consuming, there's enough bad things happening in the world, socially, politically, and even climate change wise, to scare any being. When I was channeling these things in 2015, people thought I was fear mongering, but now that it's happening right now, the fear is just showing up because of all the catastrophic events that are taking place all around us. Now, in addition to that, one of the things that I'm watching my spiritual, what I expose myself to, it's like eating food. If you are eating healthy food, you should also consume a clean and pure spiritual diet. You should expose your consciousness to things that will elevate you, that will purify you, that will make you connect to God and elevate, particularly now. The second thing we should work to do, be aware of, what kind of spiritual practice are you doing right now? Okay, a lot of you are doing my recordings and the teachings that I've shared with you, which is great. I can tell you, when my challenges are happening for me, and there's a lot of fear that's going on, sometimes I wake up and I'm so stunned over the amount and the volume of things that are bombarding, or that are trying to incite me into fear. And I have to tell you, even though these things are all around me, there's a part of me in my core that knows the Lord is my shepherd. I will not, this is a test. I'm going to be okay. There's a part of me that knows this fundamentally to be true. Now, it doesn't mean that just because you're not in that space that you're doing something wrong. It means that the voice or those outside stuff are so loud that they are distracting you. So you need to create a ritual. This is where the practice comes in. You need to create a ritual through which, no matter what, that's what you're going to do. So I'm trying to remind you that if the two things that you should be doing, you should be praying, and you should be also meditating. The two things are not the same. So my recordings will take you into, it's a guided journey and visualization. It will take you more into a meditative state. But in addition to that, you should be talking to your God. Whatever God concept that you have, you should be having daily conversation with your higher power, asking that higher power, I'm vulnerable, I am weak, I'm scared, and you have to acknowledge. You can't be emotionally unintelligent and say what's happening around me is not happening. You need to acknowledge that's a huge denial. You need to acknowledge there is something big that's happening around me. And then you have to go back now to your higher power and say, that fear and that's what's scaring me is so terrifying. Now, take this cup away from me. Help me find safe passage. Show me a way for this to move away from me. And if you can do this in your heart, and it's coming really from a sincere place, a way out will be shown to you. It can come as an inspiration. It can come as an instant healing. It can come as an untying of a knot, something that was blocking you all of a sudden, like this, disappear. If not at the moment you're doing this prayer, but it could be the day after, all of a sudden it unknots and everything gets released, and then you realize exactly what you need to do, and everything becomes very clear to you. So you need to be working on a daily basis. And this is what Job did. Job was praying to God. To everything that happened to him, he addressed the prayer to God. He acknowledged that he lost everything. He acknowledged all the bad things that were happening to him. He was not in denial, but he kept on praying to God and asking God, you are the source of all things. You gifted me all these things. I don't know what I did to deserve this catastrophic loss, but I still believe in you. And if you acknowledge God and say, I take this cup away from me, I'm struggling and I'm afraid, and this is what's happening. Help me. Ask for help to your higher power. Help me. The meditation are powerful, but these prayers, this is you now making a request to God. A balanced spiritual practice must have both. It needs to be very personal. Now, in some instances, some of you don't know how to pray. I have given you multiple books, 3 different resocks. I've given you these little booklets. I don't know if you still have them, that had all these prayers that I had channeled. And over the years, I've given you all kinds of prayers. Maybe you can get started by repeating these prayers. But it would be better if one were to come from your heart. Or you can say the Hail Mary or the Our Fathers, or any passage from the Psalms of David. This will get you started. And then address your own personal prayer to help you elevate and move to a different level. Now, the other things also that I had not done in about a week and a half now, and I started doing it in the past 2 days, and it made a dramatic difference as well. Every morning, I used to light a white candle. Okay, when I'm doing my prayers, or during the meditation, or if I'm repeating a mantra, I used to light a white candle. It doesn't have to be for too long, but I would light it, and there's a reason for this, and I would burn incense. Because There are four elements: fire, water, earth, and air. When you light the candle, you're acknowledging the light of God and you're illumining, and that symbolically represent the light of the creative principle. And you light the candle, okay? Then when I burn, so the fire is now represented by the candle. When you burn the incense, you're acknowledging the air. I typically have water there as well with me, a cup of water. And then I take off my shoes. And I do this even when I'm meditating. Even on nature, on the waterfront, I take off my shoes and I put my feet on the ground to acknowledge the earth. And I can tell you, when I have my shoes on and I do meditation, I can go deep. But when I take off my shoes, I really go deep. And if you can do that simple little ritual as I start redoing it, all of a sudden, my true connection to my central axis completely changed. Last night when I went to bed, because of the things that I had done, I now, as I closed my eyes, I could feel a column of light connecting me to the heaven. I had seen myself climbing stairs and keep climbing. I was sharing with the other class that for me, the archangel that had been showing up for me, it's Archangel Sandalphon, whose name actually translates as the Lord of Extended Heights, or the sound of sandals. And he is the archangel of the earth. His foot is on earth, and his head is in the highest heaven, in the throne room of God. He's referred to sometimes as the lesser Metatron, but he is high up. And he was actually Jacob in a past life, in a previous form. And when Jacob got elevated into the heaven, he became Sandalphon. So I wanted to mention this because I've been, last night, it was just, my eyes, I was not in bed, I was not asleep. I didn't see myself climbing stuff in the sleep. I was literally laying down and I began to see this beam of light that was like I laid my eyes were closed. That beam was on top of my head. I could feel this, I could see this light elevating, going into the heaven. And again, it's connected to simple little ritual. Because we get overwhelmed, particularly when things are not normal. We don't, our routine is not present. It's not there anymore. Go back to your routine, go back to the basics. If you used to get up in the morning and after you brush your teeth, there was a certain spot you used to go in and sit and commune with God. There was a prayer or something that you used to do that used to connect you. Go back. You don't have to do what I'm doing, but you can go back to those rituals as a way to allow you. If it's a prayer of gratitude that you used to do your prayer, and as you do this, you're going to connect. You need to reestablish and maintain that path, because that path could be snapped out like this by any little negative thought, any little distraction, any little thing that bombards it. It could derail you. All of a sudden, you find yourself in fear somewhere, having been distracted by something. It's a huge challenge in our mental mastery. It's a huge challenge in our inner discipline. It's a huge challenge for us to maintain this kind of focus on having maintain a clean and simple spiritual practice. And everything that creates drama in your life, take it out. It's not worth it. Okay? Erase the drama. People, places, and things. Anything that becomes too complicated, walk away from it. It's not worth it. Any questions, any comments that you may have? And again, your ritual doesn't have to be complicated. For some people, it's just walking in their garden. For others, if you have a garden, for the others, it's just watering their plants and having a small me time of conversation with the plants. Whatever the ritual is, for me, lighting the candle make a big difference for me. Lighting my altar and burning some incense and doing the few mantras that I do makes a big difference in me. All of a sudden, I'm aligned again, I'm connected to the divine. And whatever was the distraction begins to fade away and become completely unimportant. And it's not that my belief and my column, knowing that I'm supported and I'm connected to the divine, is not there, but sometimes the external or the fear is so big that the agitation and the noise of it is so loud and so cacophonous that it can begin to create a tremendous amount of emotional vortex that is completely unnecessary when you're connected to your belief and your knowing that I am supported and I'm fine. Whatever is happening outside is an illusion, and it's the greatest illusion of all. I am fine, for God is with me. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I do have a quick question. My practice of prayer doesn't have any particular ritual attached to it, but when I listen to music, I feel a connection. I think that you speak of that you achieve through your candle and so on. Would that not be appropriate as well?
No, if that works for you, then terrific.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, when I light the candle and burn the incense, it does something else for me. I grew up in the church, and I am, the whole ritual of when the altar boys come in and burn the incense, it elevates me somewhere else.
I understand. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Any comments? Any questions? It's important for us to understand this because, again, make it simple. Don't make it complicated. Make everything simple. We need to go back to the basics and to what works. Don't if it doesn't work, put it aside for the moment. People, friends, family members, if they're being too toxic, too complicated, put them to the side. Put them to the side. This is not the time for you to, people are bringing you with their drama and they're going blah 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 blah. And the way I am, I'm so empathetic that I immediately like to try to run to rescue. I have to learn, and this is a lesson for me. I have to learn to say no, or to say not now. I'll get back to you because I have enough on my plate.
Pierre, for me during the summer, it's really waking up early and go in my garden and sit there with a good cup of coffee. Or I could be walking around barefooted in the garden. During the winter time, it will be my cup of coffee and complete silence. And this is my me time. I don't know. A cup of coffee does it for me.
I of all things, for me in the morning as well, when we're brothers and sisters, and so the coffee is first, and then the prayer and all that happens afterwards. I have to have the coffee first.
Yeah.
And after that, I can sit down and I can pray and I can do all the other stuff. But I'm noticing that particularly now, there's what I'm trying to say to you, what I'm trying to explain to all of you. There is so much darkness in the world right now. In the ether of the planet, there is so much darkness that if you're not doubling on your prayer and on your spiritual practice, it will be very difficult for you to maintain your alignment to God.
Yeah.
When I went to see Amma about a month ago, that she was wonderful, but the people who are her own disciple, Georgie, for example, who follows her and got initiated by her. She has all of them doing all these mantras and praying, and she said exactly. She didn't say it to the public because she doesn't want to scare the public, but she said it to them. In order for you to service humanity, you need to be in prayer because there's so much darkness between now and March of next year. We all need to be in prayer. It's not fear-mongering. It's an acknowledgement astrologically of everything, all the retrograde and everything else that's going on in the world right now. And you could easily be sideswept by some sort of emotional, and it's not just emotional, but it's also the negative parasites and principalities that are being stirred up by all of that fear. If you have all these people on the planet that are afraid of loss and afraid of that kind of loss, collectively becomes something, and that something could attach to you. Who wants that? I certainly don't. So what I'm saying is that we need to do what we need to do to maintain our focus into this spiritual practice. And I'm saying this as a reminder to myself because I got distracted about a month ago. And I stopped doing part. It's not I didn't do any ritual whatsoever or practice whatsoever. That the part, which is the lighting of the candle and the incense that I was doing steadily for over 2.5 years, I had stopped doing it. And now that I started it again, I realize how much easier it is for me to connect. Someone said that the first sense that we had was the sense of smell. When you smell aromas, this is where aromatherapy comes from. Certain kind of scents, smell, and aromas ecstatically take you somewhere else. And these incense that I bought from Georgie, they have, some of them have 27 herbs. They were done by monks in the monastery that he belonged in, and they have a semi-precious crystal crushed in them. While these monks were reciting mantras. So the scent itself released something in the atmosphere that changed the entire environment. And it helped me go back into alignment. It creates rest. It creates gratitude. It creates the external agitation drops. Everything drops. And I'm able to connect better. I have my candle burning right now. I had it this morning. I turned it off right before the class. I decided I need the presence to be with me. There is a reason why, for example, in the Catholic Church, that where they put the Eucharist, there is a light there. That light represents the Shekinah. The Shekinah is the Holy Spirit. It's the female version of God. It is the Holy of Holies. It's the light that existed on the Ark of the Covenant between the two cherubim. If you remember when we were talking about angelic law in the class on Tuesday, I talked about the cherubim as having beings, and the cherubim are mentioned when Adam and Eve were chased out of Garden of Eden. It's the angel with the sword of flame. Cherubims are mentioned in the Revelation 4 when John gets taken into the throne room of God. There are 4 cherubims, and the cherubims are beings with multiple wings, having the head of an ox, an eagle, a lion, and a man, which are the 4 elements. Okay, the 4 things I was talking about during the rituals of lighting your temple. And as you acknowledge all of this, you begin to connect yourself to the 4 elements, fundamental element that basically created the entire multiverse. And not only that, but the angels, the Elohims, the divinity, the ascended beings that are associated with all of them. The Shekinah, in the Ark of the Covenant, the 2 cherubim have their wing backwards. And between the 2 wings, there was a light that was all ever present. And that light they used to call the eye of God or the Spirit of God. That's the Shekinah. When I was part of the Rosicrucian order, we had there was a central altar, and then there was the seat of the master of the temple, of the lodge. And that space between the central altar and the master of the lodge was called the Shekinah. No one under no circumstances was allowed to cross that Shekinah, that space, which is between the east and the center of the temple. Because it was believed that this is where the Holy of Holies. If you remember, all the Levites who were carrying this ark, they couldn't touch the ark. They had to put these rings and these poles to carry it, because if anybody accidentally touched it, they would incinerate immediately. They would get burned or be struck down by lightning. So the light is the Shekinah. It's the actual, and it was said in biblical passages during the Exodus that light sometime was very strong. It means at that moment God was looking around the children of Israel at the moment, and at that time it would diminish and become very faint, but never extinguish. So in where the Eucharist is in the Catholic Church, there is a light there that should remain on all the time to represent the Shekinah. In all time, before electricity, that light was represent what was tended by a person 24 hours a day by an oil lamp. Then the church had real power. It's not the same thing as the electricity. Because when you actually light something, this is why in India, when they do a puja, they have to use real oil and an actual cotton wick. Any more questions or comments? I know that some of the things I mentioned earlier about the book of Job and the various level of heaven and the 10 level and all the various things. I mean, if you think about it, Jesus said it, that my father's house has many rooms. There are many rooms in my father's house and all that. There are many heavens. And each one of them holds different treasures. And what I want to talk about now is that the role, and I'm not going to go too deep. I just want to, because I want you to understand that the Hasatan and the test that we're facing right now, I don't want you to think, although collectively we don't want to be caught in it, because when people are really seeing all these fears are becoming something, and whatever that something is, you don't want to be caught in it. But I don't want you to personalize this and make yourself be afraid of a boogeyman, because the concept of Hasatan as a boogeyman did not come until the New Testament. In the Old Testament, that energy system was understood as the adversary or the accuser, more like a test that is going to help us reconnect back to God. Test our faith. Everyone has to go through it. Test our faith to help us reconnect back to God. The native people call it Wetiko. There are multiple names for it, or the adversary or the enemy. It's a way for us to be tested to see if we are. It's like a purification by fire. If you're trying to get any metal in nature, when you find it, it's never pure. The gold that you get from a rock is never 18 karat or 24 carats. You have to go through a purification process. You have to take the rock, you have to melt it, and all the impurities, you have to scoop them out because they melt at different level than the gold itself. You have to go through a process of sifting through it. When you're crushing grapes to make wine or champagne, it's the same thing. In fact, the woman who created champagne created a process called remuage, which is a term in French that means to scoop out the debris, the stuff that you don't want, to create something more refined. So it's the same way that you have to figure out a way to elevate your consciousness and create this higher stuff. You must. We all have to go through these various tests and these various moments where we are going to be challenged by all kinds of things. So it's up to us to determine when, particularly when these things are happening in our life, how far is this going to take me? Am I going to be distracted by all of this, or am I going to allow my consciousness to connect back, either through the rituals that I'm doing, the stuff that makes me feel connected and grounded to the earth, and proceed. Now, as I go back to describe these so-called fallen beings, I want to mention a couple of things here. The first fall, Lucifer, that was guided by Lucifer. Lucifer simply said, I want to do things on my own. He disobeyed. And according to the Bible, he had pride, and it's the sin of pride, and this is what his sin was. And he took 1/3 of the angels with him, they found with him, and they were put into the second heaven. I want to also mention here that the Luciferian fall is not the same thing as Hasatan. Hasatan was created by God itself, by the unmoved mover, when the universe itself, the Big Bang, and got into manifestation. He is a fundamental part of our world and of our universe as a way to help us remove shame from our desire to give and desire to receive. He is essentially the key to help us solve our own spiritual conundrum. I don't want to invite him for tea in my house, but when he show up in my life, I as President Eisenhower said, if you're walking through hell, move quickly. Move quickly. I don't want to prolong any test, but I appreciate the role that he's playing. And I want to make a third differentiation. In the book of Enoch, there's a lot, we've done other classes on this, and there's names of angels that are provided there as the watchers that were guardian angels that were on Mount Aaron, that were watching over humanity as guardian angels, and there were 200 chief angels and their followers. And what happens is that they decided at that moment to also do things on their own. They emancipated out of the role that they were created for, they disobeyed. And by doing this, they took the shape or the visage or the appearance of human to try to copulate with human female. Because human female got very fair and very beautiful. And when that happened, they fell. They were not in the second heaven. They were on earth. I want to make that differentiation. And they are not the same as Hasatan or as Lucifer. No, they are not the same. So the archons and these other beings are not the same thing. And it serves us better because it's important for us to understand that in the economy and the purpose of a universe, even these beings serve a purpose. They are part of a jigsaw puzzle. They serve a purpose. Because if God is all-knowing, the unknown mover is all-knowing, God knew before the fall, before creation, before they fell, before creation, before he even manifested them, that God is omniscient, science. He knows everything. He knew, or it knew, that they were going to disobey. And it had already included that possibility as a purpose to help balance and restore harmony, so that his exhalation can turn back into an inhalation. Meaning what? Meaning that these beings, although so-called fallen, serve a purpose. They have a purpose that they're fulfilling. As I said, there are people who spend, I know a few people, and I think it's a waste of time. There are people who are calling themselves magicians who spend a lot of time contacting these beings and trying to talk to them. I wish them good luck. This is not the path I need to follow, because connecting to them will ultimately cause some sort of corruption, because they have specific limited purpose. For example, one of them, Archangel Samael, is name translate as the burner of God. He's a purger. Okay? He's not necessarily evil. What he does is that he consumed what no longer serves. He's the incinerator of God. That could be emotion, that could be attachments, that could be all kinds of things. Okay? So if you were in communication with him and you allowed him to permanently park in your consciousness, he will burn everything in yourself down. Everything in your life, he will burn it down. Use your discernment. These things are things that are, and we're talking about now principalities. I'm not talking about something that exists as a, this is a cosmic principality. It's better for us that we limit our exposure to these beings. It's not that I don't need it. That in the Kabbalistic tree, that archangel reside at Gevurah. Gevurah is named two qualities of strength and fear. And it's a female energy, and the way it's the archetypical representation is Joan of Arc. There is good that can be derived from there. For example, if you have attachment you want to get, every time I'm stuck on something and I can't let it go, that's the consciousness and the energy I go to. Because that energy and that archangel will burn it down, will help me find a way to destroy it, to consume it. But as soon as that is done, I pray thank you, I walk away. And I made a huge mistake when I originally approached it. I couldn't walk away from it, because it gives you an illusionary sense of control. And for 3 years, it consumed everything around me. I didn't know I was doing it. I connected and I was channeling it. It was consuming everything around me. I'm trying to give you good counsel and good advice. If ever you're connected to that, you need to limit your exposure. You have to be surgical about what you're doing. Any surgical instrument could save a life. They could actually kill somebody as well. You don't want the chaos. It has to be controlled exposure. And this is why I'm talking openly to you about all of these things. If, for example, I have a disease that's going rampant and out of control, that's one of the archangels I would call as a purger to purge everything out of me. But again, limited exposure. Be very specific about the request, what you want. Be very specific. Or better yet, because you're not God, you don't know what you're doing, pray to God and ask God to send an archangel to help you. Pray to God abstractly and say, I'm facing with this, I'm scared, I'm afraid, blah, blah, blah. Send an archangel, send your Holy Ghost to help me and purge whatever it is that's in your body out of me. Toxicity, poison, whatever it may be. I think that's a safer route, because all the magicians that I know who are constantly talking to these various, and they're all other kind of archangel. Archangel Uriel is the light of God. Camuel is the love of God. They're all kinds of other. Michael, he was like God. Raphael is the cure or the God's heal. There are all kinds of other archangels. But to keep in mind that you are constantly trying to ask, you have to know which archangel, which force you're calling, and etc. I find for myself that it's much easier for me to address God directly through a prayer, rather than go to the angelic realm and ask them to intervene. And for me, I'd rather talk to God directly and say, here is my burden, take this cup away from me. And let God command, because when you present the exact burden, in other words, the burden has to be presented with all of your fear. You can't present a burden by creating some sort of intellectual letter. It has to be raw, and it has to be shown with all of your fear and all of your vulnerability. When you present it to your higher power, and you release it and you let it go, and you say, take this cup away from me, help me, heal me, help me. When you release it and you let it go, that force, that uncreated force, will know how to create a scalar inward vibration to cancel the disharmony that exists in your life. I found this to be much more potent than me trying to remember which archangel does what, and did I call this right? I don't want to be bothered with this. Any questions, any comments? Again, stop trying to control your challenge alone. That's the point. That's the point of prayer. Stop trying to control it by your own device and realize that you're just human, you're flawed, you're imperfect. No matter how hard you try, you're never going to be able to get to all the corners and sweep all the corners. But if you were to address a prayer to your higher power, to have vacuum all of that stuff out, the cosmic vacuum cleaner will be taken out and the right solution set will present itself to suck it all out. I hope this is giving you inspiration. That's my hope today. I hope this this inspires you to double up on your prayers as a way to be more in alignment, because we're going to extremely turbulent times. When you're hearing those hurricanes and all that, well, the energetic and spiritual hurricane, financial hurricane, and health hurricane that are going all around all of us. And we need to acknowledge to God that it's a problem and ask God to help us. I remember when we were seeing Amma several weeks ago, she had said that during when COVID started, she saw the suffering of the planet and she was so worried that for 3 years she went in a silent retreat. She did not speak to anyone. She went back to the south of India where she has her temple and she was in prayer. Again, not allowing outside distraction to come to her. Now she has a lot of devotees, a lot of people were following her, a lot of disciples. They were running the show. They knew what to do. It's not that she didn't speak to anyone. She speaks directly to her higher disciple. She told them what they were supposed to do if she picked up something or all that. But for the most part, she did not speak. She was in meditation. She was in prayer. And she's the incarnation of Sarasvati, the goddess of knowledge, music, and science. My experience with her was extraordinary because she gave all of us a blessing. And I can tell you that she's much more than the woman who was sitting on that podium. Because the moment she touched my head to give me the blessing, something big just cracked open for me. Any questions, any comments? All right, let us take a 5-minute break. And then we'll do a closing meditation on the back end of this. 5 minutes.
Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your mind and your heart sync with each other. And notice what you noticed. Realized that you can perceive 360 degrees and that you're seeking all around you to understand. Notice what you noticed. Become aware of any expansions, insights, release, and knowing that this is creating for you. Become aware of a brilliant point of light that exists in your heart space. Pulsating, vibrating light. Able to take any shape that it wants. Expanding brighter and brighter. Pulsating, vibrating light. Able to take any shape that it wants. Enveloping your entire chest cavity. Pulsating, vibrating light of understanding, empathy, and compassion. Moving through your entire body, seeking areas where cellularly you're holding resistance from the accuser, the adversary, Hasatan. Take a very deep breath. Surrender and let go and exhale out. Become aware of the challenge, the resistance, whether it is physical, financial, emotional, psychological, or climate related. Become aware of the challenge, the resistance, the fear. If me, my family, or my ancestors had hurt you, your family, or your ancestors, since the beginning of creation until now, by thoughts, by deeds, by words, by actions, or by inactions, please forgive me unconditionally. I release and I let go of all cords, attachments, and controls. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. What is your greatest fear right now? Become aware of your vulnerability. And the thing that the adversary is agitating to the greatest degree. Let this now play in your consciousness in its worst outcome. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. I call upon God, the God Force, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. I call forth the silent watchers of the cosmos, the extraterrestrials, Guardian Alliance of Light, the Cosmic Council of 12, the 24 elders in front of the throne of grace, the order of Melchizedek, the order of Enoch, the order of Michael, the order of the Golden Room, the order of the Platinum Room, the order of Shambhala. We call forth the Universal Federation of Light, the Galactic Regent Council, the Galactic Mathematicians. Lord, Holy Ghost, and entire celestial and universal and cosmic hierarchy. Mother, Father, God, Take this cup away from me. I am scared. I am afraid. And I'm deeply vulnerable by what appears to me as an insurpassable obstacle. Take this cup away from me. You are my solace. You are my rest. You are my healer, my redeemer, and my repairer. Take this cup away from me. And let the scalar invert the blessings, the repairs, the grace, and the instantaneous and miraculous transformation and change that I need ground into my entire consciousness, being, and life. Let this be the end of all suffering. I am now anointed by God. And let the sacred and holy oil mark me with the towel and mark every cells in my body and every aspect of my life and consciousness, giving me safe passage through all chaos and turmoils that may exist in my life at this time or may show up in the future horizon. May the entire celestial hierarchy and all the holy hosts, the choirs, and the legions know through and through that I passed the test. I have graduated. And I am anointed by the Shekinah, the Holy of Holies. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes. How you all feeling?
Everything is good. Thank you for the class. But I just think we need to remember pray without ceasing is a phrase that the Apostle Paul letter to the Thessalonians contained. And if you want to read it for yourself, it's First Thessalonians, and it's chapter 5, 15 to 18. And what the verse says is to rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, and in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And to me, it's like, it means we have to maintain a constant connection and awareness of God's presence in every situation. And as you said, praying not literally nonstop, but praying often, faithfully, and sincerely, and to remember our dependence on the great Holy Spirit and invite that Spirit to be the guide in our lives. So this to me is like a formula. Rejoice evermore. And this is what Job resorted to, going through all those various tests. He continued to give thanks in everything. Because if this, whatever is happening to him is the will of God, he is thankful. And whatever it's going to be the outcome, we don't know. We're not going to say, well, do this, do that. We know that whatever way it works out, that is for the highest and greatest good for all. And in my own personal Job experienced, that we're all going through something, but speaking for my own self, I say for the highest and greatest good for myself and everybody else concerned here. And giving thanks, I'm grateful. Something good has already happened to me. And I know staying in this mode of thought will invite more of that good into my life. But whatever it is I need to learn from going through this experience, I give praise and thanks for the opportunity to go through it in that consciousness of drawing more of the Christ to me. So in all things, I rejoice and pray faithfully and sincerely, because you don't always have the right word, but prayer doesn't mean you have to have words. You can groan and moan. The Spirit can interpret that as well.
Mhm.
So just thank you for the remembrance, to put me back in mind for pray without ceasing.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Celidia. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that passage. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Celidia. Amen to that. I love you.
Love you too. Love you all. And know that whatever is for the highest and greatest good, the whole planet is being lifted up. And everything and every being that has come to it will also benefit by that lifting up. And as we were taught, that even Satan wants to be saved.
That's correct. That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Pierre, for the class. Love you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being with me tonight. If you're watching on Patreon, thank you for your support. On YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it. I love you very much, and I'll talk to you next week. Let's keep praying, people. Love you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.